what is your prediction? Because the women are powerless, and mullahs and ayatollahs both are very powerful. So where it is going to lead? I mean, I don't know how many people died a lot in Iran, and there is no support from Pakistan. I don't see anything. Even in India is not speaking up anything about Iran.
I think the government at the government level, I think India hasn't spoken, but a lot of Indian activists and they have a lot of people with blue ticks. They have actually spoken about it. But yeah, I mean, we by the way, Angry Loser, we have covered this at length. This topic even earlier today and last week as well. We've been covering it regularly, so please keep an eye on that as well. But obviously, yeah, we've got Armin. So Armin, the same question that we keep asking you: where do you see what's going to happen out of these protests?
All right, so I'll keep it short because we talked about it a lot. First of all, it seems like women don't seem to be that powerless. A lot of forces in the world have tried to cause some pressure and create some fraction within the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is right now the most powerful theocratic fascistic regime in the world, right? And it has had a grip on its people on 85 million people for the past 40 years, and no foreign source and no even internal or external political opposition groups have managed to do what Iranian women and girls have been able to do in 1 month. So it doesn't seem that they are as powerless as we thought they were, right? But you are correct to think that it's not enough. Like women leading an uprising and schoolgirls coming out in the streets and chanting "Death to Dictator," they need support. Like as powerful as they seem to have been, they're gonna need something else to do the final push, right? So the protests, if you look at it in the past couple of years, they come and go, right? And every time somebody thinks like, oh, this is the final push, but then they die down and it seems like the regime is still in power, okay? However, what you have noticed is that the protests are happening with less time distance between them. And every time it seems to be more radical than the one before it. And every time it seems to be more diverse and encompassing of more different sects from society, okay, from the one before it. And the sect that there are 3 sects that weren't joining that are everybody's waiting to join, right? It's the religious people, the Bazaris, like the merchant class, and the final sect is some people from the military, right? So those are the 3. Like we see, like now there's unity between ethnicities, unity between because used to be like the previous protests used to be centered on maybe Central people or Kurdish people or Arab people in Iran, but now it seems to be a unity among Turks, Fars, Kurd, Baluch, Arab. It just doesn't seem to, ethnicity doesn't seem to matter anymore. There's some unity there. Protests before used to be upper class, sometimes lower caste, sometimes. Right now there seems to be unity between upper class and lower class. The unity that we were waiting for was religious people and non-religious people, because it used to be just mostly non-religious people that were leading the way, right? And men and women, we're seeing unity between men and women as well. Now we're seeing a major joining of religious people. You're joining secular people against the regime. So that's step number 1. We finally saw the merchant class, the Bazaris, joining the strikes. Those strikes were what actually led to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when the Bazaris and the oil industry people joined strikes. That was like one of the final nails in the coffin. So we now are seeing that as well. But the most important sect that we require to join eventually is the military class, right? And we've seen signs of that cracking ever so slightly, but not massively. But just the fact that we're seeing some hints that there's dissent there, it's a major plus. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen to the future. But what we know is that the protests are escalating. And even if these protests die down, it seems like the next one is going to be happening even sooner and with more intensity. And it's just hard to imagine, because for this regime to be able to hold on to power for the next decade, when it's losing its base and also losing the entirety of the younger generations. Okay, like, and because the younger generations are more anti-regime, more anti-Islam, and seemingly have unlimited bravery because they seem to not care about being like, they just, it's compared to our generation, like we were scared, like we would never even imagine saying certain things in private. When I was in Iran, when I was these kids age in Iran, the things that they are shouting in the streets were things that in our own private circles we would hesitate to say, even in a whisper. So this generation seems to just like be a lot braver than us. And eventually this generation is going to grow, and also they're going to have kids that are going to be even more radical than them. Okay, our religion used to have, our generation used to have religion in public and non-religion in private. These people are taking out their headscarves and burning it in public. I don't know what the next generation is going to be like, but it just doesn't seem like, it almost seems impossible for the regime to be able to hold under the power forever, especially when Khamenei dies. And Khamenei is more than 80 years old. So whatever unity even exists again in the pro-regime side, that might even die out when Khamenei dies. And I don't know what's going to happen. It's just hard to imagine how they were going to be able to maintain a hold on power. I don't know. Did I answer your question, Angry Loser?
I think you did.
Get my best-selling book, Why There Is No God, for free. Click on the link for it in the description.